Welcome back, Pirate Crew. It's your captain, Yeehaw Yadam, and for today's video, we're finally back with a market watch. Now, in the One Piece TCG, I think towards the end of set 2, the market got pretty darn stale, and I really wasn't going to make market watches if there really wasn't a market to watch. But with the release of Pillars of Strength, we've got a new reinvigoration of the One Piece market, which is excellent news for Canada and therefore the world. So, let's get right to it, right? So, the pre-release window is finally going to shut down this Friday, which is going to allow you guys to have A, more cards coming into the market for TCG player, and B, get to see exactly where prices go, right? Because for those of you that don't know, the way that these pre-sale items work, especially on TCG player, right? On eBay, that's not necessarily the case, but for TCG player, you can only list these if you're I believe a store, a physical location. So if you look at the amount of product that's up, it really isn't much. A lot of these are Japanese, right? So it starts right here at the bottom. It's about two pages, maybe 3 pages worth in terms of these boxes. So whenever you see product, you see cards, they're going to be very scarce. There's not going to be a lot of them. And it really comes up to the people that do get to place these cards before anyone, these products on the market, that dictate where the pre-sale item is. Now, most of these stores, they do these early pre-sales based on the fact that they believe that they will pool these cards. So oftentimes they'll open their own product and they'll try to pull some cards. And if a card is a little bit more rare, you know, they'll be maybe a little bit higher on the pre-sale price, but that's also really sneaky and it doesn't really give us any information to us, the average player. So I want to start off by saying this is the value of the box currently, and everywhere near me was selling the boxes at $150. Every store was just selling, if you wanted a box of Pillars of Strength, $150, except for one store that was selling it at MSRP around $85, which was kudos to them. I wasn't able to get one because that sold out almost immediately, but there are stores that still do that. The reason I bring up the price is because if you see here, as hype comes up, so does the price of the box, and then it comes down, right? Which is weird. Now, since I do the PPG Patreon, I do have a little bit more bonus information when it comes to product and availability and allocations. So, the one thing I will say of Pillars of Strength is that this was a heavily allocated set by distributors, about 30 to 40% cuts around the board. So if a store wanted to go ahead and order 3 cases, they would only receive 2 or maybe even 1. So expect that moving forward. That doesn't necessarily mean that prices are going to be higher. It's just that could add more volatility to the market. But on a side note, Bandai did notice this, and they're doing a wave of Pillars of Strength that should be out in the end of July, early August. So that should also, if the prices don't come down, should come down during that time. So $150 for the boxes, sure. I mean, it's One Piece. Last set for Pillars of Strength, I believe people were selling boxes at $175, $180. It's really hard to do a market watch when it comes to these things, because why are the prices so high? I get that it's a fantastic IP, it's a great game, but it really just kills player bases when you constantly see this, especially others, you know, when stores scalp it even higher and people try to scalp on people that don't play the game are buying boxes to resell the boxes. It really just ends up killing communities, and it's really sad because I do see a lot of players interested in playing the One Piece TCG and then just don't get into it because of you know, budgetary reasoning. So sucks to suck, but looks like the box is gonna be $150. Now, the reason I again will emphasize this one more time is because I will look at the cards, and that's going to be reflections of the prices of the box. So we'll keep this number in mind as we move through. Let's start off with Charlotte Katakuri. Now, Charlotte Katakuri is the yellow deck, right? This is the new leader that was introduced for the color yellow, one of the new leaders, and it's the one that's expected to do the best. It's the one that has had the most results in the East, and it's honestly a really great leader. Its ability is fantastic. It's very similar to what like Smoker was in the last set, One Dawn, for the probability of getting a 7k attack, but this one is more consistent, and also it gives you information that no other color, no other leader gives you in the game. It gives you access to information in players' life, which is honestly super duper strong, and I don't even know how to value it in terms of a game state, how powerful that effect is. But I can tell you exactly how valuable it is in terms of price. It's looking like Katakuri is sitting at about $175. Now, if you see here, he was hitting at the 190s and pre-sale prices, and now he's come down just a bit to the 175 region. There are a bunch of them that are still being sold. If you see here, about 10 of them have been sold at these very high prices, but will the price really hold? And that's something I want to, you know, show you guys as we move through this this video, right? So Katakuri is expected to be the strongest leader in this set. Who was expected to be the strongest leader last set, and I mean probably is still the best leader in this set, is Edward Newgate. Edward Newgate was a card that if you look at the price history, if you go back, it was at the same idea, 190, and then it started to teeter down. They hit Moby Dick, teetered down, it went back up actually, but then eventually it kind of seemed to stabilize around the $115, $100 region. Always remember, guys, that when you try to buy cards off of people IRL, that this price right here is not the real price of the card, right? Because if I were to sell this card on TCG Player has to make a cut. It's just the way that these websites work, right? So if you remove that cut off of TCG Player, remove the shipping cost, because if for a card of this price, you're going to want to add specifically tracking, you're going to be losing about 16 bucks. These cards usually go for 85% in real person trade. So if a card is 116 bucks, it's most likely closer to 100. So once again, 100 bucks for the Newgate is about almost, it's not half, but if you think about it, it's like significantly less than what this Katakuri is going for. That's not to say that Katakuri will hit the $100, but I do expect it to follow a similar trend to the Edward Newgate. Now, Edward Newgate's been out for quite a bit now, you know, almost 3 months. So therefore, in 3 months, you will see cards eventually dip, fall into their specific price ranges. But I do believe that Katakuri is going to fill the same void. Now, if you're very excited to play this deck and you want to buy it, you think the price is reasonable, I mean, more power to you. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your money. But if you're a player that's trying to be on a budget, trying to be more conservative with their money, you can, and you really want this card, you can definitely wait a bit. And I'm going to show that across the board throughout this video, to get the cards that you really, really want. Now, let's talk about the Nami Alt-Art Leader. Now, it's funny that there's no image here because, funnily enough, I did not see a single one pulled in all of pre-release. I think I saw about maybe 8 cases opened, and in those 8 cases, I didn't see a single Nami. On the flip side of that coin, the day that I didn't go to the shop because I have work and, you know, other responsibilities, my buddy opened 3. 1 in each box and 1 in his pre-release pack. So yeah, it just is what it is, right? So the card does exist. I just have yet to see it. Now, this leader isn't strong by any means, right? I've done the YouTube video, I've done the deck profile, I've seen multiple deck profiles, and it's mostly just copium. I want to play the deck. I'm being honest. I think this deck is going to be really cool. It's going to be really fun. I'm excited to try her out. But in all honesty, the deck is pretty cope. And you know what I would go ahead and align her to is Garp, right? So Garp is another fan favorite character from the show, similar to Nami. Now, Nami has a different tax that Garp doesn't have, but she's very similar to him, as in, you know, she's a player character that people enjoy, that people love from the show, but at the same time is on the fringe of playability. And at the same time, even though the effect seems to be very, very good, akin to Garp, it just probably won't see as much competitive success as you think in the near future, right? So if the game ever does slow down, set 4, set 5, wherever the game decides to go, if the game gets a little too slow, Nami's head will just peek her way into the meta. So I do think that she is very interesting, very different to Garp in that sense, but just keep in mind the price changes, right? That's what I want to go ahead and show you guys. So she's the second highest card, or one of the highest cards in the set at 170, and Garp is sitting at a nice cool 61 bucks, right? So when Garp came out, he wasn't as high as Nami by no means, and you know, he even dipped to the 50s for a little point in time. That's where I picked him up. But I definitely do think that Nami will follow a very similar trend. As you can see here, because she is Nami, she starts at about close to $200. So, you know, Nami cards don't come cheaper than that, apparently. And then all of a sudden, she goes down all the way to 85. Now, let's look at the sales history. There isn't as much as Katakuri. This is more of, I want to say, like a collector card. These are collectors probably picking up this card at this price, because I don't see anyone that wants to play it in a competitive sense picking it up at about close to $200, but I may be wrong, right? So I do think this leader has legs, but at the same time, not yet, and therefore I can wait to go ahead and pick up this card. This card is sitting at 160 bucks. I wouldn't be surprised if I see it all the way as low as what Sanji ends up hitting, which is around close to 50 bucks now. On the lower side of 100, definitely less than 100 is where I see this card going in the future. On the flip side, the deck is really cheap because it is a common, uncommon deck, and therefore what really holds the deck value is the Nami, and that might be another reason. It's really hard to tell, especially in market values, like what people will decide or how the market will decide the price of a card. And there's a couple like reasons that it can stay high, but I'm trying to bring up the reasons or play the devil's advocate on why it can also come down. So wouldn't be surprised if this card stays high for a little bit, and then inevitably, eventually, as the meta settles, comes way, way down. So let's look at now Ace, the leader that I'm most excited for. I did try to pick this up all weekend, and I was not successful. Everyone that opened the card decided they want to keep it to play the deck or to try the deck out or whatnot. And I completely understand that. He's a very interesting, innovative character for the red archetype. He's not just necessarily I go face, bada bing, bada boom. He does a little bit of other things, but at the same time, ace falls under the issue of hit ace for 7. Just I'm not trying to say the deck is bad by any means. I really will be trying to make the deck good and will play the deck. But if you ever run into ace, I'm going to give you guys a friendly tip in this video. Just hit him for 7. Just hit him for 7. See what he does with 7. And that's something that he's going to have a big struggle with. He probably can't do well versus Pops, you know, his ship captain, because Whitebeard is just going to hit him for 7 all day, and unless he has the removal to remove the cards from the board, Ace is just going to really have a difficult time with that. Zoro should be able to apply a lot of pressure towards this deck because it's just naturally a slower red deck, and Luffy should be able to eat this deck alive as well. So really, where does Ace fall into the meta? I don't know. He gets to play the 7-drop Ace, which is really, really cool. He gets to play the 9-drop Edward Newgate, which is also really cool. But at the same time, if you're doing all those really cool things, why wouldn't you just do it and be Edward Newgate, right? So, with that, he is sitting at 150 bucks because this is not a meta analysis video. This is a this is a market watch. So he's about 150 bucks right now. I do see, if you see here, he was at 170, dropped to 150. There should be a pretty good amount of sales for him, which I can see here. And I expected, just like Katakuri, this is one of the other leaders that people really want to try out in the meta. He's a fan favorite character. He's, you know, my favorite character. And I do see him holding 150. Now, that's about the price of a box. I don't know. I can't see this card go down because he reminds me very much or very similarly to what Kinemon is, right? So Kinemon, holy moly, why is this guy 48 bucks? That's crazy. I remember when this card came out, I had pulled it actually out of my last box, which about 145, 150 bucks is when he came out, and now he's sitting at about $100 less, really devalued over the course of a couple months. And I do think the same thing will happen to Ace, right? People expect the deck to do really well, have its specific tops and whatnot, and then just similar to Kinemon, it just struggles versus the other stronger decks in the meta that if they don't necessarily get hit, my goodness, my gosh, right? So one of the main reasons that Ace can kind of like keep up that really, really high ranking is because, again, he's a fan favorite card, and I don't think I think he's more fan favorited than Kinemon, so it doesn't really hold a very similar image. But in terms of competitive playability, I do think that these hold very similar evaluations, and therefore I can see this card dropping to 100 bucks really, really fast. I was trying to pick this card up for about 100, which I think it was really fair to people, especially on the pre-sale prices. I want to see where this card goes in the next couple of weeks because I will be looking for it. I'll be looking at you. Now, Charlotte Lindley is a yellow-black leader that's introduced in this set. Really, really cool color combination. Has a very interesting healing effect, right? Nothing that we've seen before, that if you're at 1 life, you can go ahead and Dawn ×2 and then tap 2, and you can go ahead and just heal a life, which is pretty darn cool. Well, after you pitch a card, which is pretty darn cool. It reminds me very similar to the Queen that comes in the next set, and Queen did take a couple of tournaments in the East, but this deck also took a couple tournaments in the East. It just didn't take enough tournaments in the East. Now, this is a very interesting deck that revolves around very specific cards. The black element is fantastic because you get to play very powerful cards like all the Navy Admirals. You get to play Borzolino, you get to play Chapapapa Blocker, you get to play the Fukuro, you get to Fujitora, you get to play Sakazuki, which are all very strong and powerful cards, mixed with the yellow engine that is the 7-drop big bomb, the 10-drop big bomb, like all the very big powerful bombs that yellow has. The black engine is made there to facilitate your mid game, allow you to get to the yellow end game, and then go mama, mama, mama game, right? So the deck has an idea, has a game plan, and in theory, it seems pretty darn cool. It just didn't really match up with the speed of the format in the East, and therefore, it didn't see as much top. So I will make this analysis similar to Zephyr. Now, not only because it has the half-black archetype, but because of the fact that, you know, it does the same thing. It uses black as a mid-range to get to your late game, and then your late game is the black engine here. It uses purple to get you to the black end game, and it just didn't see much success here in the West as well because it just can't keep up with the speed of the format, which is what I think is going to be very similar to Charlotte Lindley. What Charlotte Lindley does have over Zephyr is that I believe her late game is just a little bit, not even stronger, but it's just different. It's very grindy, which over the course of time, the more time that you give a player, the more options you give a player, the more that they are likely to make a mistake, and therefore this character can get some, you know, cheeky little things that happen throughout the game. She also has access to a double striker on legs in the form of Cracker, and Cracker can go ahead and catch you back up pretty darn easily. So Will this card be 127 bucks? No shot. This card at best, maybe not even, this is 40, which is, my god, this is low. But maybe you can see this card hit the 50 range pretty darn soon. As you can see here, in about the course of 2 weeks, it hit about 50 bucks, right? So you can see that as well. Now we have Robert Lucci. Now Robert here, Mr. Gucci himself, is one of the new black leaders added to the game. And I'm just going to say it, he's very similar to Smoker, right? So Smoker was the black leader that came out in OP2 and was expected to do really, really well. And Rob Lucci is now supposed to take his place and just do a little bit better. So will he do a little bit better? I do think so. I think his ability is very, very powerful. It has a very interesting kill turn. You can't really play blockers into this deck. It has the sticky CP9 engine. There's a lot really going for it. I think the deck is awesome, and I'm very excited to play around with it. So, funnily enough, for the first time in this video, I do think that this evaluation is pretty darn good for a card, right? Seeing this card at 100 bucks, I wouldn't pick it up at 100 bucks, but I do think that this one makes a little bit more sense. And I think even the community here says the same thing. What happened on the what happened here, huh? Hey. But after that, towards the 623 day, a lot of people start picking him up, and I can agree with that as well. You wouldn't feel too bad picking this up at 100 bucks, because I think the lowest that this card can go theoretically is maybe towards like the $60 range, and there's a $40 difference that can happen over the course of 2 weeks. And if you really want the card now, you're basically paying for expedited shipping in a sense, right? Smoker here ended up sticking at 72 bucks, which if Robert Lucci holds that value too, you don't feel too bad paying 100 for it, when Smoker at the release was about 170, right? So that should feel pretty bad. This not so much, right? So then we have Iceberg. He's kind of a meme, just like Emporio, and he's already basically at the price of Emporio. So if you want to pick up Iceberg, just pay 85% of 60 bucks, and you shouldn't feel too bad about that. Now, even with that really low price, you'd only see 2 sales, and that may just be indicative of its competitive viability. He's not really a fan favorite character, because I don't see people telling me, I love Iceberg, that guy was the best. So you never really know. But yeah, if you're excited to play this character, you should be excited for this price. I think this price it can go lower, definitely can go lower, but doesn't seem too bad. Then we've got Kuro. Now Kuro is even cheaper than Iceberg, and I think he's significantly more competitive than Iceberg. I think this leader, funnily enough, my list was terrible. And the more that people experiment with Kuro and get to really get out there with him, I think this card is pretty playable. And at 50 bucks, if I see someone with this card in the tournaments, in the near future, I'd probably pick it up for 50 bucks and wouldn't feel too bad about it. Funnily enough, he only has 1 sale, which is crazy to me. At 50 bucks, I don't know. I think this leader use his Captain Kid at home, with just different cards available to him. So if you really do like that playstyle, the East Blue characters are really, really strong. All of their alt-arts are gorgeous. So if you want to pick up a cheap, beautiful deck, look at Kuro. He looks awesome. And I'm going to go ahead and relate it to Magellan. I do think Magellan is a fantastic deck as well. Why is it 42 bucks? Well, I guess just people don't believe in the jailer himself, right? So on that same note, you can see him drop maybe another 10 bucks, but if you're not afraid of losing 10 bucks or, think it can go even lower, this is a great evaluation for it. I wouldn't feel bad picking it up for 50 bucks. Moving forward, we have Arlong, which is another meme leader of the set. His effect is literally the same effect as Doflamingo, but it comes from hand, which is negatively impactful towards this game, right? Because what made Doflamingo so good is that you wouldn't lose hand advantage to summon a free body. This one, or this guy, or this fish man, he does lose a card in hand, right? He plays a trigger from hand, and the trigger cards have to then be exceptionally good in order to make up for that, which they are. A lot of the trigger cards are very, very powerful, but what Arlong ends up being is like a yellow deck at home, which is just, as a 4-lifer yellow deck at home, it's just not going to have the oomph to beat the very fast decks like Katakuri. Hitting him for 7 is just going to mollywop him. Zoro, Whitebeard, any deck that could just consistently go poke, you're going to have a bad time. And there's not really much healing that you're going to be allowed to in this deck because you don't have access to 10-drop bomb. You can play the 7-drop bomb that comes in the starter deck, but if I just choose to burn myself, you won't get the healing, and then you're just going to be in it for a bad time. I will evaluate him close to Sanji. Now, Sanji is a fan favorite card, and he holds about 50 bucks. Arlong, I don't really hear, again, I don't see anyone saying Arlong is my favorite character in One Piece. Maybe he is. If you are an Arlong enjoyer, hit me up in the chat. But Sanji is hitting 50 bucks, and I can see this going even lower than 50 bucks. And see this card very close to maybe 40 bucks into the Magellan Emporio range. But I put Sanji because he's dual color, dual into green with an excess splash. You know, Sanji actually is significantly, in my opinion, more viable than Arlong. But I guess we will see. The card is beautiful. I will say I have seen this in person, and the white contrasted with the black and blue is gorgeous. But that's basically it. And now let's move on to not leaders. Let's talk about Soga King. Soga King is 800 bucks right now, which, yeah, at pre-sale price for the manga rare, I can see that. Ace, I think, pre-sold at about 1,000 bucks and then dropped to like 700 and then has stayed around 700 for its foreseeable future. If this started at 800, same trend, right? 1,000 to 6 is about $400 difference. So I do expect maybe not a $400 difference in Soga King. I may be a percentage drop. I can see this card sitting in the $500 range. Low 500s, mid 500s. So if you got it at your pre-sale, your pre-release, you should feel pretty happy. For whatever reason, this card was pre-selling at 240 in June. Anyone? Huh. Must have been a mistake. And then this also, oh my god, someone made a little clicky error. Yeah, but I do see this card maybe dropping down to the 500s, maybe even lower. It is Soga King, he is the Sniper King, so he might hold a little bit more value, but Ace is also Ace, and he did dip as well. So I expect the same thing for Soga King. That is not financial advice, because I don't really know where this card will go. And let's move on to our first playable Alt-Art Secret Rare in Charlotte Katakuri. Now, both the secret rares in this set, Soga King as well as Charlotte Katakuri, are both very powerful playable characters. Now, my boy, my gosh, what does that mean in terms of prices? I have no idea, because I have nothing to base it towards. The best I have to base it off of is like Uda and Shanks, which are like fringe playable at best. People will try them, people will like put them in their deck and be like, ooh, now that's some spice, my guy. But Katakuri, yeah, that's not spice. That is an expected card in the yellow archetype, because it has a very powerful effect. It has some of the only removal that yellow has, and it also has just interesting interactions. You can go ahead and stack your own triggers to heal yourself by one. He's a big body. He is searchable by the Big Mom Pirates, and honestly, my goodness, that card looks good. So, where do I see this card going? Who knows, man? It started at 140, went all the way up to like 160 on pre-sale. I saw people trading this card at 160, my goodness. And now it's coming back down to 135. Hasn't been bought at 135, but someone did buy a playset at 150, so that's very interesting. And again, I don't really know where this card can go, so this is one of the cards that I'm going to be interested to see where it goes in the near future, because this is something that will be telling for future sets as they make other playable Alt-Art Secret Rares, so that I can base upon my evaluations, because I can't really use Uda as a good source for it, or Shanks. Then we've got Charlotte Pudding, which is like the Nami of the set, right? She is the 1-drop 2k searcher that finds the new cool dudes in the Big Mom Pirates and Sanji. She's waifu, has this little dude behind her. It's a cute card. So, funnily enough, this card was trading, I think, at like 170, 180 at pre-release, and now it's going down to like 145. Interested to see where this goes. I hate when people put Japanese on TCG Player. I just think it's really, really troll. It tries to get people slipping. So, yeah, 145. I can see it go a little bit lower, but I don't want to just assume that it'll go lower. It's really tough to say. Really tough to say, because this is considerably like a Nami in this set. And if it's already dropped maybe from 175 to 150, then how much more can it continue to drop? And that's something, again, that I'm going to be interested to see how it goes. Nami held its price because there's really not a lot of Romance Dawn out there, and there shouldn't be a lot of this set out there, but maybe in Wave 2, this can go all the way even lower, maybe like the 90s. I'm going to go ahead and compare it to Edward Newgate. I mean, I could compare it to Nami, but come on now. No one's getting compared to Nami in this channel. And Edward Newgate is sitting at 65 bucks. This card was trading at the beginning, at release, for 200 whole dollars. It doesn't show the whole picture here. If I go to the one... Sheesh. Look at that, 166, very similar to Pudding, and now he is sitting at 65 bucks. Now I picked up 4 of this card, not at 166, but maybe like around here. And yeah, I was not expecting. I saw him at 100, and I was like, at 100 bucks, sheesh. And it just kept going down, and that to me is a little bit wild. So if even this guy can go down, maybe it's because of the reprint, but even then, the reprint in my eyes doesn't look as good as this one. I may change my opinion once I see the reprint in person, but maybe Pudding is not safe from the same issue as Edward and Newgate. So I can't see this card going down. I don't think it'll hit 65 bucks, but this is a card that I would wait on. And then next we have Marco. Marco is one of the most ridiculous cards that's been printed in this set, and I'm just going to go ahead and reference him to himself from the last set, because boy, oh boy, do we have 2 broken Marcos in the game. Excellent. Thank you, Bandai. If you're a Marco enjoyer, you're eating, man. You're really eating. So the card's about $100 right now against the other Marco. If I go here, go to the 1 year, I do believe he was like at 100 as well. No, there was no shot. He was $55. Well, I can tell you that during pre-sale prices, this card was exceptionally high. I'd have to load a billion more sales. This card has been moved a lot. I remember looking at this card, seeing him at 80s, 90s, and thought, yeah, that's pretty fair. And then when I saw him dip all the way to $40, I was like, what the heck? I will take 4. Thank you very much. Yeah, he's coming back up to the 63s now because of the playability. I don't even see where he was unplayable. Apparently, at one point, he had $25. I don't know what's going on, but this card was always very, very good. And as hybrid Whitebeard started to take over the meta, or to be introduced into the meta, and now everyone's switching over to Ezo and Whitebeard pirate characters for the red engine, you're going to be wanting to play this Marco at 4, and along with this one. Now, even the regular Marco is sitting at about 30-ish bucks, because you are going to be needing to play it in whatever red deck you want to play. It is just so powerful as more red decks shift to events and Whitebeard pirate typing. Will this card hold $100? Probably not. I can see this dropping. I do think that the standardized version of the card will actually, funnily enough, hold more pricing. It'll be like $25, $20 card, because it's just like a gateway to entry from this set. Is one of the cards that like you're like, oh, I pulled this SR, this should hold me some value, right? It's one of the better SRs from the set. And if you pull the alt art, yeah, people would want to buy it. People do want this card. I personally do want 4 of this card, but I'm not willing to pay these prices on this card, and because of that, I'm happily waiting to see where it goes. Then we've got Charlotte Cracker. Oh my goodness, one of the most broken cards from the yellow set. And all these very broken yellow cards, I'm going to go ahead and attribute them and highlight them with their black counterparts, right? So Charlotte Cracker, amazing art, beautiful. By the way, may I just say, Bandai, you snapped on the art in this set. It's fantastic. It's gorgeous. If you've seen this card in person, they look really, really good. The foiling is amazing, and you can see that they really put some time into an effort into making these cards. I'm going to go ahead and make that connection that this card is currently $64. I did see this was like 90 on release, and now it's dropped already down to a much more reasonable price than $64. And again, this is pre-sale prices. Just you wait till people get access to this market and get to post up their cards. My goodness, this is going to be the wild, wild west. I'm going to go ahead and attribute it to Borsalino. Now, Borsalino is the best Admiral in Black. Fight me. It just is. It's the best and strongest card that Black had available between Kuzan as well as Sakazuki. If you look at those 3, Borsalino is just the most playable out of all of them. And if you want to talk about which is the most playable yellow little small character, it's going to probably be Cracker. Cracker has a great effect, it has that trigger ability, it has double strike, it has the structure deck Zoro, it has 1k counter. It has a lot of good stuff going for it, right? So I will just attribute it very similar to Borsalino, and I was able to pick up Borsalinos at like 25s. So it doesn't show it here, but there was a point where he gets to like 30 something ish bucks, and I was able to like make a deal and drop it all the way to 25. And I think that Charlotte Cracker may not hit the 25 range, but I can definitely see this card hitting $40 very easily. And man, when this market watch goes up, and maybe next week we could maybe even see this card in the $30 range, just because of how quickly people are moving this card. And not only that, but we have Perro Sparrow already at $40. This is another card that was like 80s, 90s, yeah, as you can see here, and is now already in the $44 range. It's going to be very similar to the Kuzan, who is $30 right now. These prices are just moving down, and they're moving down quickly, right? So don't expect a lot of these cards to hold too much value, apparently, because yeah, and there's a ton on the market already. Like I said, I can just wait till they come out. A couple people have bought them in 80, and they've bought play sets. These are people that are just committed to playing yellow. It's a beautiful card, but I just can see this card going even lower. If this guy is $30, then you can probably pick this guy up for sure at like the $25 range, maybe even $20. Let's just wait and see during the next 2 weeks exactly how it holds. And then lastly, we've got the Big Mom herself. This card is terrifying. My goodness, this is what nightmares are dreamt out of. And we have it very similarly, I guess, analogous to the Sakazuki, which is about $40. And if you look at Big Mom, she's about 50. And she started, again, at around $90, already all the way down to 50, which is, we can see her go down maybe just a little bit more. This price is already starting to get juicy for this card, in my opinion. But I can see this card already drop all the way down to $35 to $40. If you are excited to play yellow, just wait it just a little bit. I think if you guys wait about a week or 2, you'll be able to access all of these beautiful alt arts for a fantastic price in comparison to if you look at them at these pre-sale values. So that's going to be it for now. This is going to be it for my market watch on Pillars of Strength. This is, again, pre-sale prices. This is all speculation, but I do speculate pretty well sometimes. This is not financial advice, so do with it what you choose. And if you guys have made it to the point in the video, leave a comment that says, yeah. So I know you guys made it all the way up here. Thank you for watching the video in its entirety, and I really appreciate your support throughout this channel. So as always, guys, if you enjoyed this type of content, make sure to leave a like, a comment in the comment section so we can talk about exactly what you guys are excited for in Pillars of Strength. And as always, if you do enjoy this content, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any more One Piece TCG gaming. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.